Daniel Kearns was the kind of man everyone trusted, devoted father, little league coach, and friendly neighbor. But when 12-year-old Ellie Ramirez vanished without a trace, and 2 weeks later was found locked inside the hidden chamber of his custom RV, the horrifying truth emerged. Daniel wasn't just living a double life, he was orchestrating a nightmare on wheels that no one saw coming. In the quiet town of Crescent Pines, nestled among dense woods and winding country roads, life moved slowly and predictably. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and kids played outside until sunset without fear. That peace was shattered one late September afternoon when 12-year-old Ellie Ramirez didn't return home from a quick trip to the corner gas station. Her mother, Maria, began to worry when 30 minutes turned into an hour. She called her daughter's friends, checked the nearby park, and then finally contacted the police. By nightfall, the entire town was buzzing with concern. Local police responded quickly, organizing a search party and distributing Ellie's picture across social media. Volunteers flooded the streets with flashlights, calling her name into the darkness. Drones were deployed to scan the dense forest that bordered the town, and officers checked every nearby building. Surveillance footage from the gas station showed Ellie buying a soda and leaving the store, walking down the sidewalk, and then disappearing from the frame. No vehicle pulled up. No one was seen following her. It was as if she vanished into thin air. The first 48 hours passed with no solid leads. Rumors started circulating. Some believed she had run away. Others suspected someone close to the family. But Maria insisted Ellie wouldn't have left on her own. Her daughter had no reason to run, no signs of distress. As pressure mounted, law enforcement reached out to nearby counties and began examining other unsolved disappearances. That's when a retired ranger called in a tip. He had recently noticed tire tracks in a closed-off section of the Crescent Pines Forest Reserve, an area not accessible to the public. A team was dispatched to investigate. What they found sent chills through even the most seasoned officers. Deep in the woods, hidden beneath the shadows of towering pines, were signs of a temporary campsite. A burned-out fire pit, empty snack wrappers, a crumpled blanket, and something much more disturbing, a pink sock half buried in the soil. It matched the description of what Ellie had been wearing when she vanished. The ground around the site was disturbed, and faint tire tracks led away through the brush. Suddenly, the case shifted. This wasn't a runaway or a random act. Someone had taken Ellie and was smart enough to stay hidden. Whoever it was, they had access to remote areas, moved without being seen, and left barely a trace. The hunt for Ellie turned into a hunt for a ghost on wheels. With the discovery of the hidden campsite, the investigation took a darker and more complex turn. Law enforcement realized they weren't dealing with an ordinary abduction. The precision of the setup, the remoteness of the location, and the complete absence of personal items from the perpetrator all pointed to someone experienced, someone who had done this before. The tire tracks were measured and identified as belonging to a mid-sized recreational vehicle, likely older, based on the wear pattern and the narrow tread. It wasn't much to go on, but it was the first real lead. State police widened the search, focusing on traffic camera footage from nearby highways and rural roads. They scanned through hundreds of hours of video, looking for RVs that matched the tread and timing. One pattern began to emerge: a white and gray Class C RV, with faded stripping, had been spotted near 3 small towns in the last year, each shortly before a child went missing. None of the towns were close together, and each missing child had been classified as a runaway. Due to the lack of physical evidence or witnesses, the disappearances had never been linked until now. Local sheriffs, now working together with federal agents, revisited these older cases. Each one involved a young girl between the ages of 10 and 13, last seen near isolated roads or gas stations. No bodies had ever been recovered. There had been no demands, no communication from the kidnapper. The RV sightings near each scene suddenly made them part of a chilling pattern. The suspect was someone who traveled frequently, chose secluded places, and left just before suspicion could take hold. A significant break came from a hunter's trail camera, located miles from the forested campsite. The footage, dated 3 days before Ellie vanished, showed a similar RV slowly moving through the undergrowth on an unpaved road, its windows blacked out. The image was grainy, but the license plate was partially visible. Investigators ran the numbers and traced them to an expired registration under the name Louis D. Grant. The problem was, Louis Grant had died 2 years earlier. The RV was either stolen or registered using a dead man's identity. Either way, The pieces were coming together. They weren't just looking for Ellie anymore. They were looking for a serial predator using mobility and isolation to avoid detection. And the longer he stayed on the move, the harder he would be to catch. The manhunt intensified as law enforcement agencies coordinated efforts across state lines. The partial license plate from the trail camera led to a broader digital dragnet. Surveillance footage from truck stops, gas stations, and roadside diners was analyzed frame by frame. One trucker came forward with a tip he had seen a similar RV parked behind an abandoned service station off Route 17 nights earlier. He remembered it because it seemed oddly out of place, and the man driving it had kept his head down, avoiding eye contact. Deputies were dispatched immediately. When they arrived, the RV was gone, but tire impressions and a discarded food wrapper matched items found at the previous campsite. A review of nearby security footage finally hit the jackpot. The RV had passed through a toll booth just an hour before the team arrived. This time, the cameras caught a clear image of the vehicle, including the full plate and a better look at the driver's face. A match was made. The man was identified as Daniel Kearns, a 42-year-old from Ashcroft, a quiet suburban neighborhood nearly 200 miles away. On paper, Daniel appeared unremarkable. A father of 3, a Little League coach, and an IT consultant. He had no criminal record, no signs of abuse or prior investigations. His neighbors described him as helpful, even boring. His wife reported that he traveled often for work, always alone, always returning with souvenirs for the kids. Nothing about him suggested he could be involved in something so monstrous. With a court order secured, agents searched his home and found nothing out of the ordinary, but a storage facility listed in his name revealed more. Inside a locked unit was a second, stripped-down vehicle registered under an alias, boxes of camping gear, and maps with hand-drawn notations. The RV, it seemed, was his second life. Later that night, an anonymous tip came from a forest ranger who had spotted an RV matching Daniel S. parked deep in the Grayson Wildlife Reserve. Law enforcement moved in silently, surrounding the area. When they breached the vehicle, the horror inside was beyond anything they had imagined. The RV had been converted into a series of cramped, controlled compartments. One section had soundproof walls, chains bolted into the floor, and a small mattress. Ellie was found inside, pale, shaking, but alive. In another hidden compartment, they found a second girl who had been missing for over a year. She couldn't even remember her own name. The rescue of the 2 girls sent shockwaves through the community and across the country. Media outlets swarmed the Grayson Wildlife Reserve, and the story became national news overnight. As the girls were taken to the hospital, investigators began the grim task of processing the RV. Every inch of the vehicle was treated as a crime scene. Behind false walls and hidden compartments, they uncovered a disturbing array of items: small clothing labeled with names and dates, dozens of unlabeled videotapes, child-sized shoes arranged in rows, and journals filled with coded entries. The RV wasn't just a vehicle. It was a prison on wheels, designed with precision and forethought. The manhunt for Daniel Kearns escalated into a federal priority. With 2 living victims recovered and evidence pointing to multiple others, he was now being treated as a serial predator. A forensic team began decoding the journals and analyzing the contents of the tapes. What they found painted a terrifying picture. This had been going on for at least 5 years. The notes detailed routes, locations, routines, and methods of surveillance. Kearns had targeted isolated towns and campgrounds, studying his victims for weeks before making his move. He had cataloged everything, including personal observations about the children he abducted. As authorities built a timeline, they discovered that Kearns had used his legitimate job as an IT consultant to travel across states, often scheduling appointments near locations he had already marked as potential targets. He had maintained his family life with calculated ease, spending just enough time at home to avoid suspicion. His wife, interrogated for hours, denied any knowledge of his secret life. She admitted he had always been a bit distant and spent weekends on solo camping trips, claiming they helped him clear his head. No one, including her, had ever questioned it. The community of Ashcroft was stunned. Neighbors who once trusted Daniel with their own children now recoiled at the thought. His oldest son, barely a teenager, reportedly broke down upon learning the truth. The school where he coached baseball terminated all staff involved and launched a full review of their hiring procedures. People questioned how such evil could have been hiding in plain sight, operating behind the mask of an ordinary father and husband. As federal investigators continued tracing his past movements, missing persons cases in other states were re-examined. Daniel Kearns was no longer just a suspect in Ellie's kidnapping. He had become a person of interest in a growing list of unsolved disappearances. The question now was, how many more victims had there been? The search for Daniel Kearns stretched across multiple states, with every law enforcement agency on high alert. He had vanished without a trace, leaving behind the RV, the two rescued girls, and a chilling paper trail of his crimes. Authorities believed he had switched vehicles and was using a new alias, possibly trying to flee the country. Facial recognition alerts were issued at airports and border checkpoints, and his photo appeared on most wanted lists nationwide. But he remained elusive, slipping through surveillance networks with unnerving ease. Investigators followed a lead from a prepaid debit card transaction at a hardware store in rural Montana. Surveillance footage confirmed it was Kearns. He had altered his appearance, buzzed hair, beard, tinted glasses, but his gait and facial structure gave him away. In the footage, he was seen purchasing camping supplies, duct tape, and canned food. It was clear he was preparing to disappear into the wilderness once again. The FBI quickly mobilized a tactical unit to the area, working with local park rangers to comb nearby trails and backcountry paths. For days, they tracked subtle signs, trampled grass, recent fire pits, disturbed branches. A forest ranger spotted smoke one morning and alerted the team. When they arrived, they found a small hidden campsite, but Kearns was already gone. However, they recovered his journal, still warm from the extinguished fire. Inside were cryptic notes indicating he was planning to start over and find the next one. The writing made it clear he had no intention of stopping. Then, after nearly 2 weeks on the run, Kearns made a mistake. He was recognized by a store clerk at a truck stop in Idaho after attempting to buy fuel with cash. The clerk, having seen the news, quietly alerted police while pretending not to notice. Officers surrounded the parking lot and apprehended him without incident. Kearns offered no resistance. In his truck were more handcuffs, syringes, and another list of names and dates, some matching missing girls yet to be identified. In court, Kearns pled not guilty, forcing families to relive the horror during pre-trial hearings. Prosecutors introduced overwhelming evidence: DNA, video footage, journal entries, and testimony from the surviving victims. His conviction was inevitable. Daniel Kearns was sentenced to life in federal prison without parole. The RV was placed into evidence storage, now known among agents as the RV of Horrors. Investigations into other disappearances tied to Kearns remain open. For the victims, recovery is a long road, but their rescue prevented future tragedies. And in the shadows of suburbia, communities now look closer at what evil may be hiding behind familiar faces.